Can your podcast get you a speaking engagement or maybe even multiple speaking engagements? I think you know the answer. I'll be answering that question coming up next. Hey there, podcaster. My name is Shannon, radio broadcaster, podcaster, and podcast producer. And today's video is powered, as usual, by Agora Pulse. What am I trying to say? And it is sponsored by my podcast, The Swing Shift Side Hustle. It's a podcast for creatives just like you, where you can learn a little bit more about the creative process behind musicians, artists, painters, photographers, whatever. Right now, I'm interviewing a lot of musicians right now, so you can go check that out. Link is down in the description down below. Now, today we're answering the question, can you get a speaking engagement if you have a podcast? And I think the very simple answer to this is yes. You can totally get a speaking engagement with your podcast, as long as your podcast is pretty consistent. Now, when I say pretty consistent, I'm talking like every week. You're dropping a new episode every week so that you can help establish some authority to your own brand or to your own podcast itself. Now, that's something that I talk about in my blog. If you want to read the blog, the link is down in the description below if you want to check that out. But I'm just going to tell you right now, as we go through a couple of steps to help you get speaking engagements, you're going to want to have a podcast that is consistent overall. That's just the name of the game. And that's what conference coordinators look at when they come to you and see if they want to have you come and speak. Maybe your podcast has helped you generate money. Maybe your podcast has helped you generate a large fan base. It all depends on what that conference is going to ask you to do. So you may not go speak in front of someone that or to a group of individuals that talks about how to grow an audience really large. Maybe you're actually talking about hunting techniques, or maybe you're talking about crafting techniques. It just all depends on the topic and content that you're creating for your own podcast. So what I'm trying to tell you is that you should be establishing your authority as a person in that niche. Now, I understand that there are other people in your niche that might be the authority. There may be someone who is all about upholstery and they know how to upholster couches, and maybe you're an upholsterer too, but you're not quite as big as the guy who has a big podcast. I don't care who it is. I'm telling you right now, keep podcasting and keep talking about your niche, because the difference between you and the guy who already has a large audience is that you are you and they are them. The personalities are not the same. You have a different personality than someone else, and so people will latch onto your own personality and you as the person, maybe more than the more popular personality. So just continue being you and continue growing your podcast. On the other side of that coin, you should also consider that person who maybe is big in the niche. You should also try to consider doing some collaboration work with them, because that might help grow your own audience. So you can help establish your authority there. I think whenever it comes to the internet game, we all are used to having competitors, but sometimes our competitors are some of our biggest assets as far as people who will support us the most, because we know how difficult the game is on the internet to get fans, likes, generate money, whatever. So collaborate with the big dogs if you can. Next step I want you to do is I want you to keep a well-maintained blog. And I have pushed this constantly since I started this channel up about a year ago. And I continue to talk about the importance of a blog and how important a blog will be for a conference coordinator when they come to you and they say, hey, we really like what you have on your blog. You have a lot of really informational stuff that really helps everyone out. Can you come and speak, or can you talk on one of my webinars or whatever? They may ask you to do that, and you may have to come up with a presentation. The more content that you are creating, in other words, if you're creating a podcast and you're having that podcast transcribed and you're putting it up on your blog, it allows the conference coordinator to go and see that you are very serious about this. If you have a well-maintained blog that looks nice, it's visually appealing, and it is easy to navigate, they're going to like you from the start. They're going to know that you're very serious about your podcast or your brand, and that might award you the opportunity to go and speak. Now, before I jump any further, are these speaking engagements paid? I will tell you this right now, not unless you're generating a bunch of money for your podcast. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, which is very possible, because I have seen people like Pat Flynn go up and they speak and they get paid for their keynote speeches. Those are the types of guys that are getting paid. But as far as asking to speak like as a side session, that might be be more of a free thing, but you are being exposed to an audience that otherwise didn't know you before. So you kind of got to take the good with the bad. So if you're asked to go to Chicago, Illinois for your favorite Flat Earthers conference, and these people have never heard of you, and you go in and you talk to a conference room filled of individuals who absolutely love your podcast, then maybe that awards you the opportunity to have people to go to your website and to learn more about you, and maybe even jump onto your email list, get more downloads, maybe get more YouTube video views, who knows. So you're going to have to determine how well kept your blog is. You need to have a really good blog, because that is your information hub. That is how people are going to find out about you. Now, not all the time will people come to you and ask you to speak. You're going to have to go out and look for opportunities if that's the case. Now, I know that in the past, I have reached out to certain conference coordinators, or I've gone to certain websites, and I have applied to become a speaker, and sometimes I don't get picked, and other times I do get picked. So it just really is all going to depend on whether or not someone is going to like your content. So that's why I suggest that you make the best possible content to have on your website and on your podcast, because that might award you the opportunity to be in front of more people so that they can be exposed to you and come back to your website. Now, if you do get that speaking engagement, make sure that you are giving calls to actions during the speaking engagement, to email you, to reach out to you on your social media profiles. But the most important thing I think you should do is you should be driving them to some type of email list. And you'll hear a lot of people talk about this. If you've not started an email list, you need to get them on an email list, because email is the best way to keep in touch and communicate with those people who are interested in your own content. They may be able to get in touch with you on Facebook, on Instagram, but what if those platforms went away tomorrow? You would lose all of those people, and that asset is gone. So that's why you want to collect email addresses. I talk about email marketing in a link right up here if you want to go check that out. And it helps you. It helps me. It doesn't help me. It helps you kind of understand a little bit more about why email marketing is important for you and your podcast. So if you like this video, go ahead and leave it a thumbs up down below. And if I missed anything in this particular video about speaking engagements, because there's so much that you could talk about, leave a comment down below if you're watching this on YouTube, and I promise you that I will get back to you as soon as possible. Don't forget, hit that little bell when you hit the subscribe button. The little bell will actually notify you when I drop a brand new video onto YouTube, and you can come on in and you can leave it a thumbs up, and of course leave all those comments. And if you're a brand new podcaster and you're just jumping into the game for the very first time, you don't know where to start, but you're like, hey, where do I even go? I've got the perfect download guide for you. It's my essential quick start guide for starting a podcast. It's in the description down below as far as a link is concerned, or I'll go ahead and leave it up here so that you can go ahead and download it as well. It's also on the end screen when you get to the end of this video. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching this video. Leave a comment, like I said, and I will be talking to you next week.